Hello and welcome to our first Steel City Shorts podcast episode previewing the NBA season. My name is Ryan Berry.
And I'm Alex Brown.
And today we are excited to welcome our first guest to this podcast, our NBA analyst, Colin Dunworth from Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us, Colin.
Thank you for having me.
Today I'll be asking both Alex and Colin questions previewing the NBA season. We'll start with question 1. With the NBA turnaround being only 72 days ago, what should we expect from these teams to start the season?
Oh, I think so. From watching one of the games last night, and after the games are getting started, after a while, it seems to get a little sloppy out there. I saw a few transitions where they're missing shots 10 possessions in a row. But, I mean, they're tired. They're on a shorter off season. They haven't got enough rest. And I'm sure once we get a few weeks in the season, we'll look completely normal again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then if you look at it, 72 days, not a lot of time. They've been in training camp for 9 days. These players with different teams. You saw that struggle with the Lakers last night, and these players they have like 3 new players in their starting lineup, and it's not easy to get to do that. And there were definitely some sloppiness on both sides on both games yesterday, but that'll work itself out. I think you're going to be seeing a higher level of basketball to start because, just based off of there not being a lot of rust because you were only off for 6 weeks and now you're back. You went to training camp. I think once you shake it off for a couple of games by the start of January, I think we'll be getting some pretty high level basketball.
For the next question, LA Lakers, of course, won the championship last year, and they made some good moves with the offseason. Do you guys think they're still the favorites for this season? And if not, who do you think is?
Absolutely, they're the favorite. The moves they made them better. They got Dennis Schroeder in a trade where they traded Danny Green, a first-round pick, to OKC. And when you're a championship team and you're trading away first-round picks, it doesn't matter. First-round picks should just be for trade bait. That's all they should be for when you're a championship team because they don't matter as much. And they've got Montrezl Harrell, the sixth man of the year last year, and they're a better team, and they're the favorite to win until proven otherwise.
I completely agree. I think they should 100% be the favorites. They've only gotten better. They added a true point guard in Dennis Schroeder. I think they didn't have that point guard. Well, Rondo played pretty well for them last year, but Schroeder was also a contender for the sixth man of the year along with Harrell. Now they got both of them. They also brought in Marc Gasol. He can be he can contribute off the bench. And if I was willing to bet, I would bet a lot of money on the Lakers winning again.
I agree. They are the team to beat in the NBA this year. Next question. What team improved the most through trades and free agency signings? Of course, there are a lot of teams that made moves. And what do you think made the best moves out of all the teams?
I would say the Lakers. They brought in Dennis Schroeder, Harrell, and Marc Gasol, but I'm not going to be boring like that. I'm going to say the Atlanta Hawks. They brought in Danilo Gallinari. They brought in Rajon Rondo, help out with Trae Young in the backcourt because Trae Young's not the greatest defender. And they didn't sign him, but they traded for Clint Capella last season, and they're going to get him. He has not played a game for them yet, so they'll have him for this season. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, he's a solid player for them to have at their 3 spot. Maybe come off the bench, probably not, but I think they have a pretty solid starting lineup to begin this season, and I think they can make a playoff push.
I would agree with that, and then also with the Lakers as well. And when you look at some of these teams, if you look at not as much free agency because there weren't a lot big free agency signings as much that like teams got multiple big guys. But if you look at trades, I think the Phoenix Suns look pretty good this year with Chris Paul trade. And I think that they're going to be looking for a playoff spot. And I think they will get one this year. And Chris Paul makes them a lot better. Devin Booker's a heck of a young player, and it makes him want to stay more with with getting him. And I think they're in a decent position. Free agency wise, I mean, you look at Charlotte. Charlotte got Gordon Hayward. That's a big signing. But so a lot of these other players stayed. If you look at Fred VanVleet, he stayed with Toronto. Some of these guys, like Giannis, next year he's not going anywhere. He's staying. He got the Supermax deal with Milwaukee. A lot of these guys are starting to stay. Paul George. But so free agency wise, might be Charlotte with getting Gordon Hayward. They look better this year with him if he plays because he's always hurt. But free agency wise, it'd be Gordon Hayward to answer your question.
And to kind of carry on from that, what free agency signing was the most surprising? Of course, there are a lot of moves. Which one was like the weirdest or surprised you guys the most?
Gordon Hayward.
Yep. Exactly.
I was shocked by Gordon Hayward. Absolutely shocked. He's going to. It had to be about the money. It had to be about the money because there's no way he would go to Charlotte and for that. And he's not going to win in Charlotte. It's going to take a lot for him to win in Charlotte. They need a lot more help than him. But it had to be about the money because no other championship team is going to pay him that kind of money to come in there and play. Just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, 120 million over the next 4 years. Like Alex said, no one's giving him that. And I mean, the Hornets, I'm surprised the Hornets brought him in because if they have a young team, they have a lot of promising players. If they keep building them up, they could be contending for a playoff push, and they could use that money that they used to sign Gordon Hayward to bring in someone to elevate their team to make them contenders. So, but it's for sure for the money, and they could have a veteran presence in their locker room because they have a very young team, and good for Gordon Hayward. 120 million.
That's a lot of money. That's a crazy amount of money for that guy. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yep. Out of the next big re-signings of the offseason, what team is in better position over the next couple of years? I'm going to give you 3 teams, and you guys can tell me which one you think is the best. First, Utah Jazz. Next, Milwaukee Bucks or the Los Angeles Lakers?
I'm going with the Bucks. They extended Giannis for 4 years, 5 years if he picks up his option. And arguably he's the best player in the league. And if they just keep him happy, keep building the team around him, I can almost guarantee they win a championship while he's there.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. If you look at the Jazz have a lot of hurdles in a stacked West. And I don't see them in the next 5 years, let's say, winning a championship, even though they have their 2 stars locked up. Then you have the Lakers. I see the Lakers winning a championship in the next 2 years because I think 2 years is their window with LeBron. I don't think he's going to be – that's all his contract is, and I don't know if he'll be playing past 2 years. And then if you look at Milwaukee's in an East that's not great. It's not as good as the West. And if you look at them with Drew Holiday now and Chris Middleton as your 3rd best player in your team, debatably your 3rd best, but that's when he's your 3rd best player, you're in a pretty good position. They have a big 3. I don't know if that might be probably the best 3 players on one team in the NBA if you think about it. And then I see them winning at least probably 2 championships maybe in the next 5 years, because based on the West, it's going to be shifting away from the Lakers over the next 5 years, and then Milwaukee's really going to be coming to the forefront of the NBA, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be getting some rings.
Of course, that NBA preseason just finished the last couple of days, and the regular season started last night. Any first thoughts that you guys have of what you've seen from the teams?
I like what I've seen. I think it's good to see everyone on their new teams and the young rookies to see what they can do. I mean, and it's not like the all-stars are playing so many minutes or anything. They're just getting ready for the season. Like, I mean, no training camp. You got to get ready somehow. So I think there's a short sample of games, but what I've seen so far, it's looked pretty good.
I think so too. And you look at some of these guys with new teams. John Wall looked pretty good in preseason. Once again, it's preseason, but John Wall looked pretty decent, and he hasn't played in a year. And then he's getting paid an exorbitant amount of money. That's the worst contract in the NBA, John Wall. And then the young guys, as Colin said, they looked pretty good. I mean, some of these guys looked pretty good. James Wiseman last night, he looked pretty good. And but what preseason it was 9 days. I think it was basically 9 days that they had a training camp in preseason before they started the season. That's not a lot. You can't learn a lot, but you get warmed up a little bit.
Yep. And one of the craziest things that's gone on through the offseason is James Harden, the Rockets. No one really knows what's going to happen there. And if moves are made, where do you guys think he's going to end up?
I think a move will eventually have to be made. I don't see why they would keep him on the team. It's not as bad as the Antonio Brown situation, but I guess you kind of compare it to that. The Heat are reportedly out of the conversations for trading for him. And I think the most logical spot would be the 76ers. I think they're the team that could together the best package for him. And he's a great player, but every other team has something going for them. I feel like 76ers are kind of stuck. And if they bring in James Harden to the East, they could possibly get to the conference finals or the finals.
I haven't seen what he was saying before. He hasn't seen mine, but I say the exact same thing. That Philadelphia 76ers are the right place to go for him. He knows the GM now, Daryl Morey. And, they were in a good relationship in Houston. And they have the best package. He said he wouldn't trade Ben Simmons. He's lying. He can definitely trade Ben Simmons. James Harden's a better player than Ben Simmons. Everyone knows that. Don't pee in my ear and tell me it's hot rain. And that's ridiculous. And if you look at that, I think it's obviously a good package. As he said, that's very astute of him to say that they're in a rut. They really are. They're not getting past the Bucks with the current lineup they have now. They need a spark, and James Harden would give them that spark.
Yep, and the NBA has a new playoff format this year with the 9th and 10th seed in each conference doing a playing game to see who makes the playoffs. It's kind of be like question 5. We're going to give you 3 teams from each conference. You'll just give a yes or no answer if you think they're going to make the playoffs or not. We'll start with the Eastern Conference, the Washington Wizards.
I'm going to go with yes.
Yes, I agree with him.
The Charlotte Hornets?
No, I don't think they make it. I think they're 10th or 11th best team, or they'll finish 10th or 11th best record in the East. I think they're making their way there, but no, not this year.
Lastly, the Atlanta Hawks.
I have them at the 11th. I don't think they're going to get in the top 10 in order to be in that playing game. I think that game's going to be between probably the Wizards and either the Magic or the Hawks.
Yep. Now we'll move on to the Western Conference. First, the Golden State Warriors. They had a tough year last year, but do you think they'll bounce back this year?
I think maybe the playing game. I don't see them being higher than 7th or 8th seed. They can definitely bounce back. Steph Curry can definitely lead a team to the playoffs, and he has a decent team around him. Andrew Wiggins has to step it up. Didn't really like what I saw from him last night, missing a lot of shots. But I think they can get it together. I think they can make the playoffs.
I think they'll make it, but I think they're going to be in a playing game. I think it's going to be between them and probably the Suns in that playing game. And that'll be a tight game. But I don't see a lot of promise from that team. They're not going to win the championship with their current roster now. And they have to improve. Without Klay Thompson, it's going to be a tough road. It really is. Steph Curry's going to have to take this team on his back. And will they make the playoff? I mean, there's 13 teams probably in the West that can make it to the playoffs, and they could probably make it in the East. But it's going to be tough. The Kings, the Spurs, the Warriors, the Suns, and I think the Rockets are going to be a little lower this year. Are all going to be vying for those final spots.
Yep. Next team is Portland Trailblazers.
I think they will make the playoffs. I think they'll be probably 6 or 7 seed, maybe 8. But I mean, they have a real solid team. They lost Hassan Whiteside, but they still have Yusuf Nurkic. They brought in Robert Covington. They have a nice starting 5. I don't see how they don't make the playoffs with the talent they have on their team.
I agree with that. I think they'll make it. I think they'll be a 6 seed.
Last one for the West, the Houston Rockets.
I'll let you start, Alex.
Houston, we have a problem. That should be the name of their start of their season. I mean, because you have to get rid of James Harden. If they don't get rid of James Harden, I can tell you right now and they wait a while, wait up till the trade deadline, they're going to be in trouble because I think he's tanking. I think he's going to actually tank this team. He's gotten into trouble at practice. He's having verbal spouts at teammates. He threw a ball at a rookie, and I mean, I don't think I think they make it. I think they make it, but I think they're an 8 seed.
I think they're a playing team. They don't have. They brought in Christian Wood, solid player. Eric Gordon's still there. He's a solid player. James Harden just doesn't kill this team.
And DeMarcus Cousins too.
Yeah, I've not seen him play though. I think 8 seed maybe. Won't give him anything else more than that.
There's a lot of good players, of course, this season, but which one do you think really stands out and you think will be the NBA MVP for this season?
I think Giannis is going back to back to back. I don't see how he's not going to slow. I don't think he's slowing down. I think he'll only improve. I think his only competition is Luka. But until I see Luka lead his team to top 3 seed in the West, I'm not saying he's the MVP.
Well, I'm going to take Luka, and I'm going to say I think he's going to be able to get his team into a top 4 spot this year in the West. Obviously, it depends if Kristaps Porzingis can stay on the floor, and if he is, I think they'll have a chance to get in the top 3. I think Luka Doncic should have. I mean, he was an MVP candidate last year. I think he's a Vegas favorite this year, and I think he will win this year over Giannis.
Last 2 questions coming up. For question 10, what is your projection for the NBA Finals? What 2 teams from each conference you think will make it?
I'm going with the Lakers in the West, and I'm going with the Celtics. I think the Celtics are a solid team. I think they have actually a great team. If Kemba Walker come back, produce like he has in the past, I don't think many teams can stop him. I mean, the Bucks, good team, but I don't know how you can. I don't see you. I think Jason Tatum takes a big leap. Jaylen Brown, great player. Well, he lost Gordon Hayward, but they still got guys. I think the Celtics. I think they can make a playoff push for the championship, but they're not winning.
This was a tough one for me. This was a tough one, but I think this is the year for the Bucks to make the finals. I think the Bucks will make the finals. I think the Bucks will win the finals, and I think they're going to go against. I don't think the Lakers will get there this year. I don't think the Lakers will get there. I think it's going to be either the Clippers or the Jazz, and I think I'm going to go with the Clippers.
Okay.
Interesting.
Lastly, this is kind of like a 2-in-1 question. Who is your dark horse team from each conference for the 21 season, and who do you think is the most overrated team in each conference?
I'm going to start with my dark horse teams. In the West, it's the Nuggets. They're a great team. Jamal Murray showed out in the bubble last year. Jokic is a great player. He could be an MVP talks. You never know. He's real good. And I think they could take down the Lakers. They don't match up great against them, but they did lose Jeremy Grant. He was being able to hold down LeBron as much as he could in the playoffs. Couldn't take him down though. I think this year they could be a dark horse. And in the East, they're not much of a sleep. I mean, they're not much of a dark horse, but I mean, they made the finals last year. But the Heat, they haven't got worse. They've only gotten better. Bam could take a big leap, lead them to playoffs. Well, they're definitely making the playoffs. Jimmy Butler continues what he did last year. I think could be a dark horse to come out of the East.
Those 2 good picks there. I think the Heat definitely have a shot, and it's going to be a tougher East this year. And then if you look at for me in the East, I think it's going to be the Indiana Pacers. When you talk about the East, you never think of one of the top teams being the Pacers, but they have some talent there. You see Sabonis. You see they were able to get to the playoffs last year without and get a higher. They weren't too bad, but they just weren't. They fired their coach Nate McMillan, but they did without Oladipo. And Oladipo is a heck of a player, and he's going to be going into free agency next year. He's going to want to play out this year so he can get a better contract and hopefully maybe get a max deal somewhere. But I think they have the potential to be a top 4 spot in the East. If you look in the West, for me, I think it has to be the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant, he looked incredible last year, and I think he's going to be even better this year. So I would be cautious in rolling out the Grizzlies, and I think they could give any team in the West a run in a playoff series, because I think the Grizzlies do make the playoffs this year.
Going over the overrated, I think in the East it's the Raptors for me. I don't know. I mean, I think Kyle Lowry is a good player, but I don't think he's as good as people say. I think Pascal Siakam is a great player. I think he's finally rated. And Fred VanVleet, he's a solid player, but I mean, I don't see them being people saying they're making it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Last year they were people's finals favorites. I just don't think they're as good as people are saying. And maybe not a lot of people talk about the Raptors, but I don't think they're as good as some people think.
For me, I think it has to be Brooklyn in the East. With Brooklyn, they're a powder keg ready to explode, and with the personalities that they have there with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I don't think that's going to work. You saw last night Kevin Durant was in a mood, just for no apparent reason in the interview by the guys at TNT. What was he doing? Like, you saw that, Colin, didn't you? Like, What was he doing? Imagine how they are in the locker room. Kyrie Irving, I mean, he's sticking up the joint with him in the media as well. I mean, the media can cause a rift in that locker room, and I think that they will. I mean, just based on how they act towards them, and I'm sure they act like that towards other certain players in the locker room. Will Steve Nash be able to calm the tensions? I don't know if he can. I don't know if he was able to do during his career. Why would he be able to do it during this time as a coach? I think Brooklyn is terribly overrated. And then if you look at the West, I think in the West, there's Golden State's the obvious team. Golden State I think they're overrated just based on their record. I mean, based on their name, I should say. I mean, they're not going to be good this year.
I agree. I don't think I think they don't have many names besides. I mean, you got Steph Curry, you got Kelly Oubre played well last night, but no Clay. Well, Draymond's hurt, but Draymond, I mean, he's defending.
They need Wiggins to step up.
Wiggins needs to step up for sure. Wiseman looked good.
He did.
I think they got a shot at the playoffs, but right now I don't know.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the questions. Thank you for coming on, Alex and Colin. It was a fun episode, and that's our first short video podcast, and we hope to do some more as the NBA season shapes out.
Colin, this was good to have you. We appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to.